Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to start a final session of first day. This session is going to be conducted by Professor Biswajit Das. Professor Das is a professor and founding director of Center for Culture, Media and Governance. He has over 3 decades of teaching and research experiences in the field of theory, method, and history of communication in India. Prior to joining the center, he worked with national and international agencies in conducting communication research and training. Professor Das taught Sociology of Communication, Department of Sociology, Jamia Millia Islamia, offering courses on media and society, culture, media, and society and media education. Professor Das taught communication theory and development communication in AJK MCRC, Jamia Millia Islamia, Mudra Institute of Communication, Ahmedabad, and other various central universities. Professor Das has been in the advisory board of several universities and colleges in devising course curriculum. Professor Das has been a visiting professor at York University and fellow at the University of Windsor, Canada, fellow at MSH Paris, INALCO Paris, Charles Wallace Trust, London, and the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, India. Professor Das has been a member of Innovation Council of IMD Ministry, Government of India, and member of joint committees constituted by University Grants Commission. So I'll hand over the session to Professor Das. But before doing that, I'll request Assistant Professor of our Center for Culture and Governance, Atiko Kaisi, to please hand over a memento. Thank you, Dr. Kaisi. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Das. I'll hand over the microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rigu. I think this whole idea of imagining research, actually when we were formulating, I just put this idea of imagining research. I'm sure all of you must be intrigued. All of you must be intrigued. Why this idea of imagination? Why this idea of imagination? Everybody is in a hurry, actually. It's just like everybody is in a hurry to finish PhDs, and I mean, you have no time to imagine, actually. I mean, unless you imagine, you cannot do research. I think that's the idea. I would like to take you to my whole autobiographical journey itself. I mean, I realized that all these readings, writings are useless unless you actualize in your everyday practice. And probably in the process of my interaction, engagement, I would like to talk to you. I'll give you the whole global experience. I will take you all over the world, map it, and I will bring you back again, where I started. I think that's how the whole creation of the center, what you see today. And this is a part of a long cherished dream and desire. It's not overnight. It's ever since I started my engagement with communication. It's my engagement with communication. Ever since as a student I started, then I realized what are the mistakes and what are the problems one should explore. Probably the idea of mass communication as a department, nothing existed during that time. When I began, I cherished my dream and desire. I remember when I joined my MPhil, the time the passion was probably on black poetry, military psychology, or you do something on, very conventional labor studies. So, either you work on labor, you work on, that was the fashion, you work on black poetry, literature, humanities, resistance, poetry as a form of resistance, or you work on military psychology, military operations. That was the time we passed through the post-90s. I, like any other disciple, I chose to get into labor studies and labor commitment, and without knowing that labor commitment itself is highly ideologically charged, but everybody is talking about labor commitment. So initially it took me a long time to discuss and decide what exactly I'm sort of trying to do. Am I going to be a labor officer? Like in industrial relations, am I going to be a labor officer? So that's why I'm talking about labor commitment, why there is a conflict between the management and the labor. In between, I'm a mediator, mediating between the labor on the one side and the management on the other side. I realized probably that is not my take. Then I got into exposure into a few friends who said that, look, you should think about communication as a field. I said, communication? I never think that it can be an area of interest. Probably we never had an exposure, even though globally there was enormous contributions in literature, which in India, probably in the subcontinent, we never saw. At best, I saw journalism schools, and that never interested me at all. They were all journalism. And if at all they talked about journalism, they were all talking about training. You do journalism, how to do reporting, how to do writing. That's how. So that never interests you much, because there is nothing to engage with in such kind of scholarship. And I never found an interest. However, a mentor of mine pushed me, no, you should do something on communications. I wrote probably a dissertation during that time. That was prior to any institutions except INC. INC never interested, but that was probably the only institution in Delhi in those early 90s, so I went to the library. When I engaged with the books, I found it extremely boring and disgusting. How can somebody talk about in the language of social science at the same time there is a desegregations, and it took me a lot of time to engage with the technological terms, and I was finding it very silly. That how can they talk about using social science jargon and trying to talk it in a language of technology, and I was finding it so difficult, talking about translation, this, that, very simple terms. Why do you want to put it in a very technical, jargonized? You sort of try to jargonize in a way. Probably this was possible because I had a training in social science. I have a very strong roots in social science and humanities. I have a very strong roots in social science and humanities. I have been exposed to literature, literary studies, humanities. Then I did sociology for such a long time. Then I'm coming to media studies, and media studies didn't exist during that time. So that is where my engagement with communications. So in that sense, in a way I'm gifted. At the same time, I would say that I never had any systematic training. What one of the critiques of Shakespeare says that if all the poets are plants in a garden, if all the poets are plants in a garden, Shakespeare was a wild forest. So I am like that wild boar. So anyway, I'd just like to start with that. But when we did, this is actually told by Sir Walter Raleigh. Sir Walter Raleigh, who is an autobiographer of writing about Shakespeare, who talked about that, how all the plants nurtured in a garden, they have been systematically conditioned, manured, watered, so that they do not have a different fragrance. They have the same fragrance. There is no variation in the fragrance. But when you move to the wild forest, you can smell the fragrance of the flower. Somewhere somebody has that fragrance because somebody wanted to do something. Being an ordinary human being. So this is what you see all through the years. We have been engaged in and with communication studies, and that is what we have brought in. Now, coming back again, I did my work. I wrote an MPhil in communication. That was my first entry. And there was also the time when mass communication, so-called institutions are mushrooming in, just came one in Jamia, probably much later in 85 and 86. And in the institutional history of at all, somebody has to write. One needs to know that why it is called NCRCs. Very few people know why it is called NCRCs. And how these NCRCs came, what are these AVRCs, what are these NCRCs, because somebody has to write down the line an institutional history. Very few people know about it. Very few people know, because you only know the institutions. So that's what I was saying, that our institutions dominate our intellect. Our institutions dominate our intellect. And probably media scholarship is one area where institution has always dominated intellect. Because there was no intellect behind understanding media. It is the institution which dictates the term. Because everywhere you go, people say, but what about where your students will go? They say, no, we are scared because after all it is the media. The other day even I had gone for formulating a course everybody thinks that we are making a very, very spearheading course. And again, the discussion started. There was a polarization. On the one hand, media practitioners who are actually dead today, but still they would like to revamp themselves by saying that we are great. TV industry, trade industry, they have miserably failed in this country. But still they survive in small towns, limited areas, where because the institutions of training, such vocational training in this country still remains in the remote areas. Otherwise nobody will offer and study communications. So that is where the click switch operates between what you see on the one hand, the vocational training, and on the other hand, the institutional and the industry. And that is one of the reasons why scholarship failed. I would like to submit by saying that we need to go back to the war history, that if at all we want to understand communication, it is actually the product of the war. Product of the war. Product of the war. And one of the interesting factor, if you recall, all of you have studied about what is called freedom of, what is it called? Freedom of speech, right? Freedom of speech and free expression. One of the pioneers, which is called Robert Maynard Hutchins. I think if you recall the Hutchins, how many of you know about Hutchins? You know who was Hutchins? Hutchins was actually the Vice Chancellor. Hutchins was actually the President of Chicago University. You'll be surprised to know that Hutchins was the Chancellor of Chicago University. And Chicago, I sort of try to formulate the entire history that when Robert Maynard Hutchins was the President of Chicago University, it is also the time of the war. And if at all communications emerging in Chicago, it's in that context, war studies, that you find communication is emerging as an interdisciplinary field. Some of the eminent scholars like Robert Ezra Park and others being invited who spent a considerable amount of time in Germany, trained in Germany, coming back and did an experience of working with a newspaper and coming to sort of work in Chicago. The whole thrust of Chicago School, if at all, is emerging, sort of trying to struggle and understand that how through newspaper we can create community. The idea of socialization, what we are referring, actually that is where we are trying to understand communication as a form of socialization. So that is what we need to take it back. Why the idea of socialization is so important in 1940s in American society. Migrants moving from different parts of the world, settling down in the US. And that is where you need to study that how you need to create a sense of, forge a sense of community and culture. And that is where Chicagoan school contributes, Robert Ezra Park, trying to understand through print, how can you forge a sense of community. I think after the war was over, the very idea of a demise of communication, there was no taker after the Second World War. The project was over after the Second World War. In fact, whole communication was basically for propaganda. On the one hand, you find that how communications can be used for socialization at the micro level, and that is where the community studies which Robert Ezra Park did. At the same time, in terms of technology, if you see, you find two important physicists. They contributed immensely to the understanding of communication. That is Norbert Wiener and Edward Shannon and Weaver. So on the one hand, you have technologists like Norbert Wiener, who was a prodigy, whose father knew 40 languages and a professor in Harvard University in language and philosophy. And Norbert Wiener goes to do a PhD with Bertrand Russell, comes back from Cambridge, and subsequently he was throughout his struggle, and he felt himself that he could not do anything. He had tremendous crisis with himself because a famous prodigal father who knew 40 languages, professor of Harvard University, Now Norbert Wiener sort of trying to study and understand about cybernetics. That's where you find cybernetics as a science of flow of communication within and outside the system. So he's sort of trying to study during the wartime. What he's sort of trying to study is about the predictability. How much you can predict, the idea of prediction. Actually, he's sort of trying to study the missile launching during the Second World War and the launch of the missile and prediction of missiles, whether it hits the right target or not. So that is what Norbert Wiener sort of is interested in. And that is what he is giving an idea of prediction, predictability to communication sciences. On the other hand, you find Shannon and Weber bringing this whole idea of 1940s also is the time when the behavioralist model coming up in the United States. All of us know that after Second World War, we find that Britain lost its power, Germany lost its power, America championed the rule of the world as a leader of the world. It's also along with the time we are also trying to understand everything from a behavioristic method and behavioralism coming in a big way. Everything is a behavior. It's a systemic way of doing systems approach communication as a system. So you are trying to study communication as a system. There are subsystems within system itself, and that is where you find that there is a tremendous systems way of looking at it, which came immensely trying to understand the whole Americanization of communications. In fact, America contributed immensely to the global world in terms of its textbooks. So this is what I find. If you read Alan McLeod's Communication and Class Struggle, which talks about that how social system was dumped in Latin American households so that people pick up all these books and read and try to understand a Parsonian understanding of society. Society as a social systems, there are subsystems, there are parts, there are subparts, and so on. So you find that this emerged in 50s and as a major discourse, and behavioralism communication as a behavior. So we still have not nurtured much. We are still inside that ground when we talk about the terms of effects. When you say effect predictions, most of our scholars said still governed and grounded by these effect studies. So everybody says impact studies, effect studies. We are very, very redundant. We are very, very redundant and obsolete. We still live in the 40s and 50s. We haven't grown. Why we haven't grown? Why we haven't grown? One of the reasons is we never had a disciplinary engagement. We never had a disciplinary engagement. So every time we feel that whatever we are saying is a very sacrosanct. Because we never engaged. We always remained insular, isolated. We never interacted with a larger context. So this is a problem. So we thought that what we are saying is actually sacrosanct. So what I would like to submit as a premise, I would say that if communication in social science is under-theorized, within communication studies, we find it is extremely untheorized. There is a distinction when I say that within social science you find gradually there was a delink between communication and social science. In fact, that all started with American context. The moment Wilbur-Schramm took it up and became the first professor of communications in the world, the imagination got reused in the world. The decline of, there is a very interesting term as one of the critiques says. It says that mass communication as a discipline is a self-conscious creation. Again, let me repeat, mass communication as a discipline and a method is a self-conscious creation. We wanted to create mass communication as a discipline. Then it went on, endless recreations. You understand what is the difference? Think about it. Initially, it began as a self-conscious creation to give it a disciplinary shape. Then it went on endless recreations, means repetitions, without serious thinking and engaging with it. Except that we changed the nomenclature. So if it was earlier speech communication, it was journalism. Suddenly you find a broadcast technology came. We said, no more journalism. Now we need to call it mass communication. Suddenly new media came. Then you said, no, we changed. We make it new media. I mean, technologies will change every other day. Your disciplinary changes also will happen. Because there was no conceptual engagement. There was no debate. That's what I'm saying. Because we all feel so happy to talk about new media. How old is new media? How old is new media and how old is old media? I mean, for a historian, those who work on centuries, thousands of years. And if you look at the history of media, probably it's just 200-300 years old. That's what even the social science engagement, which somebody was saying, what Tulsi Patel rightly pointed out, that social science, sociologists never engage with the past. Where historians left, sociologists picked up. That was bugging me, that was haunting me when I began my research. When I began my research, that haunted me all the times. Why we do not engage with history? Why we do not engage with history, and landed up writing a thesis. Today when I look back, I find that probably somewhere or the other I became a completely what we call media ecologist, which I never wanted to be. Which I completely became a media ecologist. What is a media ecology? I'm sure all of you must be intrigued by this term. Who is a media ecologist and why you call media ecologists? I never wanted to be. I wanted to critique. I never liked Marshall McLuhan at all. I never liked Marshall McLuhan at all, and I landed up as a Marshall McLuhan. So that's what probably this is a weakness of my self-training and rigor. Probably somewhere I missed, and I never wanted to look back at my thesis, and I never wanted to publish. So this itself is an experimentation, this experimentation with the thesis. I thought that probably I would like to work in terms of making a distinction of orality to literacy, to the modern media, how the shifts, in what way that shifts are, the transitions are. That I sort of try to capture, looking at history over a period of time. So I made my work on pre-colonial, colonial and post-colonial. I worked on history, I worked on anthropology, and I worked on communications. So that was where my thesis landed up. I worked in archives, I collected data during colonial period, looked at the whole volumes of transport, octroi changes, looked at the trade. I mean, I'm sort of trying to look at communication as a trade, the transformation, the exchange value to use value, the whole movement of land, coin circulations, and I looked at whole modern transactions and theory. I remember. Then after I finished my work, one day my supervisor asked me, have you looked at radio influence in that area? I was so tired by that time I had finished my work. I said I will do it in my postdoctoral work. I said I will do it in my postdoctoral work. Then I sort of tried to move to the archives to do my work. I went to All India Radio office and I asked them, do you have archival material? They laughed at me. What kind of archives are you talking about? Yes, we have all these cassettes, audio cassettes. I said, no, I'm not interested in audio cassettes. I'm interested in, go through the files. He said, what files are you talking about? Go to archives, National Archives. Then I went to National Archives. They asked me, by mistake you have come here. Better you go to All India Radio. Why should we have radio? It took me time to understand that radio, there was no information and broadcasting ministry. You need to understand. It only came in 1941. Before that, radio was a part of Ministry of Commerce and Labour. literally struggled through, moved and looked at the archives, then I found there is nothing absolutely. You wait the whole day, suddenly you realize one file comes, as you know as a historian, and that file also relates to something else. So I initially, all my historian friends of my university, they were also all there. So while having tea and coffee, then they sort of try to console me, don't worry. That is how the life is. I never gave up. I always enjoyed my engagement with my historian friends. That strengthened me more and more. Not only anthropology, sociology, fieldwork, history, and that made me to work and go through the rigors. And I finally found one day that, look, it's all wasting time. I wrote a piece for Charles Wallace. I thought that I must go to London and work in London. I went to London. I went to India Office Record. Before that, I met a historian called famous gentleman who passed away, part-1. In fact, if you move in the history circle, people, you ask him that if you are going to London, if you want to know about archives and library, you must meet part-1. So, because he is an encyclopedic information. So I went and, because Narayani used to be my colleague here in histories, and I know Professor part-1. I went to Professor part-1. He told me, you go and meet Bindu. He told me, you go and meet Bindu. And Bindu will explain you where all radio archives are. I went to London, so because I'm still exploring my possibilities, then I went to India Office Records, and I went to Bindu. I met Bindu. And I told that I'm interested to work in 1934 to 47. What happened during that colonial period? I'm not happy with the way textbooks are being practiced or read in India in a chronology. That never happens to me. I never enjoy reading such chronology or chronological history. As if nothing happened between years, between months. I mean, it's a kind of a narrative. One is repetitive of the other. Interestingly, when my students were doing analysis of our exercise, when they do, one day a student of mine came and asked me, sir, can you guide me something about broadcasting history? I said, why? Said, then I suggested you read these readings. He kept quiet. He was so gentle and decent boy. I said, what happened? He said, sir, no, but do you have any other readings? I said, but why? He told me a very interesting joke. He said that all of them have quoted the same passage. It means one is lifting from the other. One has not struggled to go through the work. One is repeating the same paragraph in the other book. You can see the kind of scholarship that you have in communication studies. You have not much ventured. You have picked up the same paragraph, a little less, then you are sort of trying to recode the same stuff in another. So he said, this in no way helps to gain knowledge. This in no way helps to gain knowledge. If the same paragraph is being repetitions, I do not see that even people have imagination to even quote even what exactly they have, but rather they are sort of trying to fulfill those things. So that is where I got an idea that even our students are so intelligent enough to now read between the lines, even in the paragraphs, what you see, that how things are being presented. But interestingly, when I was writing, I found that, look, when Bingle exposed me to the whole world of literature, I had never exposed to such literature on